I forswore their numbers, for naught shall rule me, on the tyranny of numbers and the quiet rebellion of choosing to live beyond them. Written and narrated by Sten Oatman. There is a particular stillness in the air when you're about to be told something irreversible. Not dramatic, not loud, just very, very quiet. I was in my early 40s the first time it happened. I sat in a dimly lit office as the doctor studied the MRI scan. Like a coded map, he took a breath, straightened his posture, and said it. Glioblastoma. A word I had not rehearsed, a word that meant nothing and everything all at once. The brain is supposed to be the seat of reason, memory, self. Now mine had a trespasser. He explained the options: surgery, radiation, chemotherapy. None were curative. We're looking at about a year, he said. That was the part they always mention at the end. After the treatment plan, before the silence. A year? As if time were a product on offer here. 12 months, maybe less. Years passed, life assumed its rhythm, then one day it did not. The shadow reappeared. Same diagnosis, same verdict. Another white coat, another office, another quiet room. This time the story was eerily familiar, except now I had already lived longer than they expected. And so I found myself wondering, whose script was this really? Twice I'd been told I was diving, headed for dust. And twice I had to decide what to do with that information. Shakespeare's Hamlet wrestled with the same paralysis, to be or not to be, the pull between thought and action. But illness strips that question of metaphor. You're not pondering existence here, you're inhabiting it, hour by hour. What struck me was not the fear, though there was plenty of that. It was how quickly we are asked to arrange ourselves around these numbers. Prognoses are presented not just as probabilities, but as a new identity. You're a 1-year case, and 5 years if lucky, they imply. The sentence is clinical, but its effect is existential, finality. But what if it's not that simple? What if a prognosis is more a weather forecast than prophecy? Statistics, after all, speak to what has already happened. They document the average outcome for people who came before you under certain conditions, in certain settings. They do not describe what will happen. They do not describe you. Yet we treat them as if they do. If a number from a study can wrap itself around your spine and become the shape of your days. I began to question that, carefully at first, and then boldly. I had spent years working in systems where numbers never told the whole story. In medicine, we call it evidence. In finance, it's historical performance. But in both disciplines, there is a gap between the data and the individual, and that gap is where life happens. So I started asking different questions. Not just, what is the protocol? But what else might matter? What influences the body beyond medicine, belief, movement, breath, purpose. Oscar Wilde is said to have remarked that an idea unworthy of danger is unworthy of the name itself. My dangerous idea was this: that biology listens, that it responds not only to drugs and surgery, but to intention, to how you live, how you eat, and how you imagine your future. So I changed things. I stopped saying and trying to survive the disease and began trying to understand the terrain it had disrupted. I found physicians and guides outside the traditional lanes, experts in energy medicine, psychology, nutritional science. Some were skeptics, some believers. What mattered was that they treated me as a system, not a symptom. I changed what I ate, not out of fear, but as an act of repair. I moved more, not to fight the cancer, but to reclaim space inside my body. I began visualizing recovery, not as fantasy, but as a neurological rehearsal. After all, the brain does not easily distinguish between imagined and experienced input. I decided to use that to my advantage. And slowly something shifted, not just in the scans, but inside of me. Einstein apparently once said that if an idea is not absurd at first, there is no hope for it at all. Let that sink in. So why should I not survive? Why should I not try? Why should I be governed by the numbers? Possibility, therefore, I learned, often begins as something that does not make sense. And healing, real healing, is not linear, though our life is based on linear thinking. It does not follow timeliness. It does not care for 5-year benchmarks, as we all abide in and bow down to. I had long admired how British culture holds paradox with a certain grace. I had worked and studied in the United Kingdom and found that most meaningful progress often happens not at the extremes, but in the tension between belief and doubt, structure and rebellion. That same posture helped me navigate the medical world. Grateful for science, but unwilling to hand over authorship of my life. I had also lived and worked in Manhattan, where possibility and absurdity exist side by side, in a way that feels almost natural. If any city believes in rewriting the script, it's New York. The question was not, how do I beat this? The question was, how do I live now? And perhaps more quietly, what do I still believe is possible? I do not tell this story to offer answers for anybody. If anything, I tell it to question the ones we have just accepted as truth. We live in a time that worships data. That makes sense. Data is useful. But it's not always truthful in the way we assume. It reduces complexity to digestibility. It flattens the outliers like myself. And when it comes to illness, it can quietly strip people of their own intuition. The body, however, has its own intelligence. It responds to kindness, to attention, to rhythm, to meaning that may not appear in peer-reviewed studies, but it is written in the lived experience of many who have passed through what I have. Now, years past both of my expiration dates. I'm not interested in miracles. I'm interested in frameworks, in what we build when we stop assuming that reality is closed and begin behaving as if it might be wider than we thought in the first place. I do not know if I'll live another 5 years, nor do you, with or without illness. I did not know the first time either. But I do know this: I'm not a statistical number. I'm a participant in life. And the moment I began to question the story, it started changing. Not dramatically, not suddenly, just very, very quietly as I pursued my objective of being here. I hope you get to do the same.